back to the deep dive. Okay, today we're really gearing up for a major historical look at the American Pit Bull Terrier.
Yeah, it's a breed people think they know, but the real foundations, they're often kind of buried under newer ideas, right?
Exactly. You can't just look at the last, say, 20 years and get the full picture. You really have to go back, way back, mid-20th century.
And when you do that, you hit this one name again and again, Maurice Carver.
Maurice Carver. Right, so for our deep dive today, that's the mission. We want to give you, the listener, a really thorough, educational, but also hopefully entertaining look at his influence.
A massive influence. They called him the Silver Fox.
The Silver Fox. Okay, it sounds cool, definitely shrewd, but this isn't just a nickname, is it? We're talking about someone whose work, it's still physically present in the dogs today.
Oh, absolutely. Before we even get into his life story, we have to nail down just how significant he was, historically speaking.
Okay.
Carver wasn't just some successful dog breeder in the 50s or 60s. He was, you could argue, the main genetic architect for the modern game dog.
Architect. That's a strong word.
Well, think about it. You take pretty much any major APBT game dog line known today. You know, the big ones. Jeep, Eli, Red Boy, Chinaman. You look deep into those pedigrees, and there he is. Maurice Carver's genetics, woven right in.
Wow.
That reach, that persistence. Decades after he died, that's really the heart of his legacy.
That's incredible. So this foundational figure, he was born in Texas, November 1916, passed away in 79, and his whole life pretty much was dedicated to one thing.
Producing true pit bull game dogs, as they'd say back then. That was his focus.
All right, let's dig into the man himself. Who was Maurice Carver?
Well, to really get a handle on his breeding program, his intensity, you kind of have to look at his background. Born in Texas, 1916.
And there's that detail about his military service that jumped out at me, World War II U.S. Marine.
Right.
It's easy to just mention that, but being a Marine, especially during that war, that implies a certain level of discipline, rigor, focus.
Absolutely. That whole ethos, commitment, executing the mission no matter what, it seems like that really shaped him.
Yeah, you can almost see how that would translate into how he approached breeding dogs, that toughness, that discipline. It became part of the Silver Fox brand, didn't it?
Completely linked. People didn't just see a dog breeder. They saw someone with this really intense background, someone who knew how to get things done, whether it was on Iwo Jima or in his kennel, tactical thinking.
And he was active right in the thick of it, mid-20th century. A really interesting time for the APBT.
Oh, yeah. This is before the big kennel clubs really shifted the focus. Back then, the breed was defined almost purely by, well, function, by performance.
So within that very specific, very demanding community, what was his standing? Was he just one of many?
No, not at all. His status was pretty much top tier. We actually have quotes from the time. Patrick, another huge name.
Right.
In 1970, Patrick called Carver the most famous active dog man.
Active. That's key. So not just resting on past achievements.
Exactly. He was producing the best, the most relevant dogs right then. His reputation wasn't based on history. It was based on current results. Real, tangible success.
Okay, so if it wasn't hype, it had to be the dogs themselves. There must have been something specific, something recognizable about a Carver dog. What defined that standard? What were those core traits?
Yeah, there's like a classic trifecta people talk about. And this is really important if you want to understand his impact. First, gameness.
The classic APBT trait, that refusal to quit.
The absolute core of it. Second, athletic structure. Not just muscle, but the right build for endurance, for efficiency. Dogs built to work, not just look imposing.
Okay. Gameness structure.
Well, that's a third. And this one's crucial and maybe a bit surprising. A balanced temperament.
Balanced temperament. In a game dog.
Yes. He demanded dogs that could perform at the highest intensity, but were also reliable, manageable for their handlers, not liabilities.
That's interesting, because gameness and structure sound purely performance-based. Adding temperament suggests he was thinking about the whole picture. Usability, safety even.
Exactly. It wasn't just about raw toughness. It was about creating functional, controllable, high-performance animals.
Okay, so that focus on functionality, that seems to be the driving force behind his whole philosophy.
It absolutely was.
Yeah.
This wasn't just breeding for looks or even just for winning. It was about preserving what he saw as the essence, the core function of the true historical American Pit Bull Terrier.
Maintaining that essence. I imagine that required a pretty tough selection process. He must have been willing to make hard choices.
Oh, undoubtedly. Ruthless selection. If a dog didn't meet the standard, it didn't matter how well bred it was on paper.
So what were the specific things he was filtering for? What absolutely had to be there?
Well, you can list them out. Endurance was huge, the stamina, the heart to keep going. Without that, gameness doesn't mean much in the long run.
Makes sense.
Then intelligence.
Yeah.
And not like trick intelligence, more like responsiveness, trainability, the ability to think and adapt in tough situations.
Right, working intelligence.
Exactly. Then, of course, gameness. That psychological drive, that grit, that's what separates the good from the great.
Okay.
And finally, it all adds up to overall working ability. Could the dog actually do the job it was bred for and do it well?
So a total package, an athlete with brains and incredible willpower. But you mentioned temperament earlier, and you also hinted there was something he actively bred against. This seems really important, especially with how the breed is sometimes perceived today.
It is critically important and probably the most misunderstood part of this history for a lot of people. Let's be absolutely clear here. Okay. Carver's philosophy strictly avoided any hint of human aggression.
Really?
Strictly avoided.
Absolutely. Zero tolerance. If a dog showed unreliability, instability, or any kind of unprovoked aggression towards people, especially handlers, it was out. Immediately called from the breeding program. No exceptions. Wow. That really cuts against the grain of the sort of vicious dog stereotype that gets thrown around. Why was that so non-negotiable for him and for others in that era?
It seems counterintuitive if you're breeding for toughness.
Because it was a fundamental requirement for functionality. Think about the context. These dogs had to be handled often under intense, stressful conditions.
Right. In the pit or just managing them day to day.
Exactly. You needed to be able to handle your dog, care for it, transport it, sometimes physically intervene without getting mauled yourself. A dog that was dangerous to people was useless no matter how game it was. It was a safety issue, an operational necessity. So the lack of human aggression wasn't just a preference. It was baked into the standard because of the job itself.
Precisely. It was a cornerstone.
Yeah.
He wasn't breeding monsters. He was breeding highly specialized working partners that had to be mentally sound and handler safe despite their intensity.
That changes the perspective significantly. And that intense focus, that culling based on total functionality, including temperament, that explains why his genetic legacy is so widespread.
That's exactly it. When we say the majority of today's top APBT pedigrees trace back to Carver, it's because he didn't just breed good dogs. He bred dogs that consistently produced the entire package: function, structure, gameness, and that essential stable temperament. He basically set the gold standard, the genetic template, for what the best working APBTs needed to be.
Okay, so we've talked philosophy, the why. Now let's get to the who, the proof. The actual dogs that came out of Carver's yard. These are the names that echo, the pillars of his legacy.
Yeah, this is where the theory meets the DNA, and you absolutely have to start with the biggest icon of them all, Carver's Ironhead.
Ironhead. Even the name sounds legendary.
He was more than just a successful dog. He became a symbol for the entire Carver program, for its quality, its consistency.
And the story about the monument? That's real. They actually built a monument to a dog in San Antonio.
It's real. And you have to pause and think about that. Not a statue of a general or a politician. A dog. That tells you the level of respect the impact Ironhead had.
So what made him so special? Was it just his wins or something more? Why him?
It was both his own performance and his incredible ability as a sire. He didn't just embody the Carver standard, the gameness, the perfect athletic build. He stamped it onto his offspring with amazing consistency.
Ah, so he was a prepotent sire. He passed on his traits reliably.
Exactly. Breeders found that introducing Ironhead's blood consistently improved whatever line they were working with. It raised the bar. That's how the monument. He wasn't just great. He made greatness repeatable. He set that benchmark.
Incredible. But Ironhead wasn't the only star, right? There are others whose names still carry weight.
Oh, for sure. It was a whole constellation. You've got Carver's Stompanado, Carver's Pistol Pete, Carver's Black Widow, what a name.
Yeah.
Carver's Bullison, Carver's Boomerang. These dogs and their direct sons and daughters, these are the genetic pathways that lead to the major lines we know today.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for someone tracking bloodlines. How did these specific Carver dogs, Ironhead, Bullison, and the others, how did their genes actually merge with or strengthen those famous lines? You mentioned Jeep, Eli, Red Boy, Chinaman, Bolio. Let's connect the dots.
Right, let's break it down because this shows Carver's strategic impact. Take Jeep. The Jeep line is legendary for all-around ability, right? Athleticism, drive. Carver's genetics, often through Ironhead descendants, brought in that extra layer of relentless endurance and, crucially, structural soundness. His dogs often improved conformation, making sure that stamina wasn't hindered by physical flaws. They made the Jeep dogs more efficient, more durable.
Okay, so enhancing what was already there. What about Eli? That line has a reputation for serious intensity.
Huge power, legendary intensity. Carver's contribution there, often through dogs like Bullison, was critical. Bullison's line brought in not just power, but that functional gameness and, importantly, that stable temperament and intelligence we talked about.
Ah, so it channeled the power.
Exactly. It helped ensure that the immense drive of the Eli dogs was controllable, trainable, and reliably passed on. It refined the raw potential into a consistent genetic force.
So he wasn't just adding ingredients. He was like a master chef, balancing the recipe, stabilizing it. How did this play out with Red Boy and Chinaman?
Well, with Red Boy, famous for the red nose and certain working traits, Carver's stock helped lock in the consistency. It ensured that while breeders might focus on color, the engine, the drive, the athleticism remained top-notch, thanks to Carver's influence.
Right.
And Chinaman, known for being compact, incredibly tenacious. Carver's dogs infused genetic depth there, too, making sure that relentless gameness wasn't a fluke, but a repeatable trait, generation after generation.
And the last big one, Bolio.
The Bolio line, often praised for a particular working style and mental toughness. Carver's influence there reinforced the underlying structure and that deep, deep gameness. It provided the physical framework needed to sustain that mental fortitude.
So essentially, Carver provided the high-octane fuel and the solid chassis that these other famous lines needed to become legendary and consistent.
That's a great way to put it. His genetic combinations became the benchmark, as the source material says, because they consistently delivered those essential high-quality components: stamina, efficiency, stable temperament that elevated every line they touched.
So every time someone today talks about a great Jeep dog or an Eli dog, they're indirectly crediting Maurice Carver's foundational work.
Pretty much. Whether they realize it or not, his blueprint is still there. It shows an incredible understanding of genetics long before DNA testing.
Yeah, that level of success. It doesn't happen in isolation, does it? He clearly knew how to spread his influence. Which brings us to his connections and his public profile.
Exactly. Section 4 is about how he built his authority, not just through the dogs, but through collaboration and, interestingly, through media.
Right, he wasn't some hermit breeder. He actively worked with others. That seems key to how his genes spread so far, so fast.
Absolutely critical. These weren't just casual kennel visits. He had strategic partnerships, shared breedings with the other giants of that era.
Like who?
We're talking names like Earl Tudor, Floyd Boudreaux, Patrick again, Don Mayfield, the absolute titans. If you're collaborating with Carver, it was like a seal of approval. It signaled you were serious about quality, about function.
A mutual respect society built on results.
You could say that. His kennel became this central hub, almost like a genetic stock exchange for the best working traits.
But it wasn't just the physical exchange of dogs. He built intellectual authority too, right? Through writing.
Yes, and this is fascinating. Carver understood the power of the written word to establish standards and pass down knowledge. He was a regular contributor to the dog magazines of the day.
Which magazines? The ones focused on the working side?
Primarily, yes.
Yeah.
The publications dedicated to the APBT as a performance breed. He wasn't just being written about. He was doing the writing.
So he wasn't just a subject of articles. He was an author explaining his methods.
Precisely. He wrote articles, appeared in interviews, was featured constantly. He was actively communicating his philosophy, his selection process, his conditioning methods.
What kind of stuff did he write about specifically?
A lot about selection, how to pick breeding stock based on function, about conditioning, getting dogs into peak physical shape, and always hammering home the importance of adhering to that functional standard. He was basically writing the textbook for serious dogmen.
So he didn't just sell the dogs, he sold the idea behind the dogs.
Exactly. And that public profile, that constant presence in print, cemented his status as the authority. Not just a guy who got lucky with a few good litters. People globally read his words, discussed his methods. His program became the standard because he defined it, documented it, and shared it.
Breeder, marine, collaborator, writer. It's a powerful combination. No wonder his influence became so dominant and long-lasting. He built the system and wrote the manual.
Okay, now, we do need to shift gears a bit, because anyone who reaches that kind of prominence, especially in the kind of intense, high-stakes world the APBT scene was back then, well, they tend to attract more than just praise.
Right. There's always another side to the story, isn't there? For a complete picture, we have to touch on the rougher edges mentioned in the sources. These stories, true or not, definitely added to his mystique, his legend.
And we need to be clear here. We're reporting on the historical narratives, the perception that surrounded him, based on the source material. We're not confirming or denying anything.
Understood. Impartial reporting of the historical record.
The sources definitely paint a picture of a world with very high stakes, intense rivalries.
Yeah.
It wasn't a gentle hobby, and Carver was right in the middle of it.
So what are some of the specific, more dramatic claims or stories that circulated about him?
Well, the most serious one mentioned in the historical sources is pretty stark. It refers to him being accused of murder in a controversial case.
Whoa. Okay.
Now, again, just the existence of such an accusation in the historical discussion, regardless of the facts or outcome, tells you about the kind of dangerous, charged environment he operated in. It puts his story on a whole different level than just breeding dogs.
Absolutely. And then there are the more anecdotal stories, the kind that maybe get passed around, get embellished over time, but still shape the legend.
Exactly. The source material mentions story titles that sound like something out of a pulp novel. They really capture that intense atmosphere.
Like what?
Things like the shocking 1973 Gamedog convention night. You just know something dramatic must have happened there, right?
Yeah, that definitely hints at chaos.
Or even more direct, the untold story of Maurice Carver with a .357 Magnum.
Okay, yeah. That paints a very specific, very intimidating picture.
Whether these stories are literal truth or embellished folklore, they undeniably contributed to the image of Carver as someone formidable, someone you didn't cross lightly.
Someone prepared for extreme situations.
Or perhaps someone who found themselves in extreme situations. It creates this aura of respect mixed with perhaps a little bit of fear. And when you combine these intense, almost mythical stories with the proven, undeniable quality of his dogs.
That's how a breeder becomes a legend.
Precisely. The reputation wasn't just built on pedigrees and show wins. It was built on the perception of this incredibly capable, potentially dangerous, utterly uncompromising individual who produced the best dogs, period. The quality and the drama fed each other.
A true legend, forged in fire, you could say, and backed by DNA.
So stepping back to look at the big picture, Maurice Carver's impact is just immense. Genetically, culturally, and setting the very standard for the breed worldwide. He died relatively young, 1979, but the work he did, the functional ideal he established, it's still the central narrative for the APBT's working history.
It really has been a deep dive. And for you, the listener, especially if you love this kind of history, the story of the American Pit Bull Terrier, we really want you to know where you can go next. There are places where you can spend, honestly, hundreds of hours digging deeper.
Yeah, the sources we drew from for this are part of a fantastic effort to preserve this history. We absolutely recommend checking out APBT INFO. They have a website and a YouTube channel too.
APBT INFO. Got it.
They're really dedicated to honoring Carver's legacy and the whole history of the breed. They've got tons of documented historical stuff.
And it's not just superficial content, right? This is for serious enthusiasts.
Oh, yeah. You can find rare photos, actual documents from the time, detailed stories, even videos showing these game dogs. If you want that extensive, educational, but still entertaining journey into pit bull history, APBT INFO is definitely a key resource.
That sounds incredible. A real archive.
And beyond the online stuff, they also point you towards curated selections of old APBT books and magazines, the original stuff. You can actually read articles by Carver, by Tudor, by the people who were there.
Reading the primary sources, that's the best way to really understand the era.
Absolutely. It takes you right back.
Okay, so as we wrap up, let's leave everyone with the final thought, something to kind of chew on, based on everything we've discussed about Maurice Carver.
Yeah, think about this. How does one person, a breeder, working in a specific time, the mid-20th century, how do they create a genetic and cultural legacy so powerful, so dominant, that it's still setting the standard more than, what, nearly 50 years after he's gone? What combination of factors, that relentless selection, the scientific approach before genetics was easy, that absolute dedication to a functional standard that balanced insane drive with handler safety, how did that create a blueprint so strong it just keeps going?
That enduring influence. That's the real puzzle, the testament to his work.
That longevity, that's the measure of his genius, I think.
It really is, that singular focus. It's what makes this history so compelling. Well, thank you for walking us through this amazing material.
My pleasure. And seriously, for everyone listening, check out those resources. Keep digging. There's so much more to learn about the legacy Maurice Carver, the silver fox left behind.
Absolutely. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.